Alright, this was not the video I expected to be making today, but the struggling it is putting it nicely, the struggling Baltimore Orioles have told Brandon Hyde, adios, Brandon Hyde, you have been relieved of your duties. I believe, from what one of my buddies, Gabe, was telling me, one of the coaches has been let go as well. Third base coach Tony Mansolino, I'm going to butcher his name, will be the interim manager. Now, we all know the reports. We saw the reports before the season and during the season that there were problems in the front office. There were problems with the coaching staff. I've said it. I think they let the wrong guy go in the offseason. I think we should have kept Freddie Gonzalez and let Brandon Hyde go then, because I have been very outspoken that Freddie Gonzalez made Brandon Hyde look a lot better than he ever deserved to look. And I've looked very right in those comments, in my opinion. Now the question then becomes, do we really see, I hope this translates to a difference on the field. I hope this translates to something lighting a fire under these players, because at the end of the day, you can fire Brandon Hyde all you want. You can fire all the coaches you want. But the players have to buy in between the lines. And I don't know whether it was the reports that players didn't want to play for Brandon Hyde. They didn't like Brandon Hyde. I don't know whether they just were cashing it in because they wanted to see this happen. If that's the case, it's extremely sad that it's come to this. A team 2 years removed from winning 100 games. Last year in the playoffs, but no playoff success. It is going to be interesting to see what comes of the Orioles in the coming days, the coming weeks, as things play out. Because now and for the rest of the season, the spotlight is squarely on the players on the field. And quite frankly, if I'm Mike Elias, now that Hyde is gone, you have to think he is going to be feeling some heat. Because, let's not forget, Mike Elias was not hired by this ownership group. David Rubenstein strikes me as a old school baseball fan. I don't know how much he buys into analytics. I don't know how much, let's face it, David Rubenstein's a fan. I don't know how much he pays attention to the ins and outs of baseball. I think I think he probably leaves that to his ownership group, his front office people. Probably, leans a lot on Cal, I would hope. I'd be very curious to know how much input or influence Cal had on this decision. Anyway, what are your thoughts? Like I said, I did not expect to be making this video today. Shout out to my buddy Gabe for being the one to let me know. But as I've said, the problem is not just the pitching. I think the problem is more the offense than it is the pitching. I said it in a short earlier today. You could have the 1990s Maddox, Glavine, and Smoltz. And if you're only scoring 3 or 4 runs a game, those guys aren't going to cut the mustard for you. Cade Povich last night gave the Orioles everything he had, and the team still lost. We out-hit the Nationals by 10? And yet we still lost 4-3. The situational hitting on this team has been incredibly bad. Incredibly awful. And I just hope that, like I said, this move, I hope it lights a fire under this team. Because, boy, does it need it. What are your thoughts on the move, Gabe? Thank you for breaking the news to me. My buddy Gabe in the chat here. Now, does Tony get a real shot to possibly be the manager long term? I think time will tell. I think it all depends on how the Orioles finish out the year, if they're able to turn things around under him. I think this team, with this ready-built roster for the most part, needs a veteran manager to rattle the cages of these young guys. I really, truly do. It's going to be an interesting time in and around this team. I remember, what was it now, 12 years ago, 13 years ago, when Buck Showalter was brought in late July, early August. He lit a fire under this team, this town, that hadn't been seen since I was a teenager. Trust me, I remember the 97 team that went wire to wire. I remember the 96 team that, was in the play. But I also, unfortunately, remember the 1988 team that went 0-21 to start the season. And quite frankly, maybe it's because I was 6 years old and I didn't completely understand it. And I'm now in my early 40s and I brutally understand it. This season has hurt worse. This season has hurt so much worse than what could ever be talked about, discussed, felt. But now let me ask you guys. Brandon Hyde, does he ever get a chance to manage in the big leagues again? He does have a Manager of the Year award underneath of him, and he did weather the storm through the losing years, and he had a couple really good years with the Orioles. So, does he get another shot in another dugout? I see people saying on social media that at least we're not the Colorado Rockies. I actually think that in some ways we are worse than the Rockies, because the Rockies knew they were going to be this bad. They knew it was next to impossible with their roster, their situation, to compete in the West. There were still people picking the Orioles to make the playoffs, picking the Orioles to win the division, picking the Orioles to have real expectations. So that's why I think this hurts so much worse. Anyway, I just wanted to come on here and make a short video. Let me know what you think of the moves. We got a coach out. We got a manager out. What up, Mister? What's everybody thinking? What's the temperature of the room? What's the temperature of the Charm City right now? Do you think it's too late for the Orioles to turn it around? Do you think they should have made this move sooner? Do you think they shouldn't have made the move? And do you expect to see a difference in the way this team performs going forward based off of this managerial move? In some ways, I feel bad for Brandon Hyde because he comes across as a likable guy. But maybe that's the problem. Maybe he was too busy trying to be everybody's friend and not holding people accountable. You know, I'm not like some people. I'm not ready to throw in the towel and say Adley Rutschman is not what he was drafted to be. I'm not like some people that say, you know, these young guys are still just that. They're young, you know, but Jackson Holliday's not going to get better against left-handed pitching if you're not throwing him out there against left-handed pitching. You know, the hitting philosophy has got to change somewhat. Like, when I heard Mike Elias say in the offseason, the hitting philosophy is not going to change. We have new coaches, but the philosophy is not going to change. Well, if the philosophy is not going to change, it don't matter who's coaching it because something's broken with the philosophy. And that's just the way that is. You can't fix what is broken just with a different voice. You have to go at it with a different approach. You got to run on third base less than 2 outs? Just make contact. Make sure the guy gets driven in. Stop with the all or nothing chasing exit velocity, chasing home runs. You know, you can't convince me, and you will never convince me that Anthony Santander and Corbin Burns made such a difference to this team that losing these 2 players have made this team crash out like it has. There's no way that losing those 2 guys did this to this team. This is a fundamental coaching philosophy issue that needs to change with this team now going forward to improve. Because you can't convince me as well that all of these young guys just are 4A ball players. Because I guarantee you, if in a couple years Adley Rutschman ends up an Angel, a Dodger, a Padre, somewhere out on the West Coast, we're going to say, yeah, where did that guy go? Or where was that guy when he was here? Or Jordan Westburg ends up in a Yankees uniform in third base. Yep, that's the guy that stirred our drink. And I really do believe yes, he was struggling before he got hurt, but I think he was struggling because he was hurt. Because look at last year. I really do think he is the straw that stirs the Orioles' drink. Where, he gets going, the rest of the team will follow. We got to get our certain pieces healthy. And the other thing I'm going to throw out there, because I heard it mentioned on another podcast, I'm going to be very interested to see just how hurt Grayson Rodriguez is now that Brandon Hyde's gone. Because on another podcast, it was hinted at that there was a breakdown between Hyde and Grayson just wasn't going to play for Brandon Hyde anymore. So it'll be real interesting to see in the next coming weeks and a month, because it's going to take some time for Grayson to get heated up, even if he can get ready. If Grayson now plays for the Orioles sometime on or around the All-Star break. Anyway, guys, I just wanted to come on, make a short video, talk about the topic of the day. Let me know in the comments below what you think of Brandon Hyde getting fired. And as always, let's go.